Hi, I'm Mitchell Ringos. Welcome to Word for Word, where we offer you an in-depth look at some of our interviews with newsmakers from across the region. You'll have the opportunity to hear word for word how they responded to the news of the day. Well, representatives from 17 municipalities in the Thunder Bay District gathered at the Prince Arthur Hotel. The annual meeting of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League has area leaders working together to lobby the province and bring about important changes for the region. And we spoke with some of those leaders over the two-day period.
That's my first question off the bat. Tell me about the gathering today. Why is it so important? What are the goals? What can be accomplished through all these leaders getting together?
Well, certainly, as you know, Thunder Bay District Municipal League is a part of the Association of NOMA, so that represents, NOMA represents Thunder Bay, the Kenora, and Rainy River districts. As part of the constitution of that, the leagues come together and bring one voice through NOMA. So it's really important for Thunder Bay District Municipal League to bring the issues forward in regards to the league's issues around the Thunder Bay District. There's 17 municipalities within the city of Thunder Bay's district, and that, like I said to the meeting, the group and Mayor Boschkov, is that the city is very important to us, but we're also very important to the city because we bring the economics into the city, but we also use the city services such as medical, legal, economic opportunities. So it's a great partnership and we work together. So the importance of the league coming today together after 3 years of hiatus through the COVID pandemic, we know it was very important to come together in person. Biggest numbers we've had in many years today, and this week is going to 83 participants. That's a lot for the league to have in one room. So it's good showing of all the municipalities are registered. So there's going to be councillors from every municipality within the 17 that I made mention of within the Thunder Bay District. So we're going to talk of various different issues and items on the day and a half of this conference and get understanding and educated on what's happening in our region, what's happening in the community, and who's the service providers that are giving us the services that we take into our communities and utilize them in various different ways. You know, MPACs and the food distribution centers, the DSABs. Those are all things that affect us directly, and most people in our communities don't understand that, but we as councillors are reflecting those benefits to our communities, and those are the service providers that give us the stuff that we need to function on an annual and a monthly and a daily basis.
Is there a keynote or a highlight, one or two things that you'd pick out that are particularly important on the agenda for these 2 days?
I think everything that's on the agenda that we're representing in a day and a half in the conference is going to be important to all the municipalities, some more than others. You know, like, I talk about the Salvation Army, for example. Well, it's providing a service here in the city of Thunder Bay, but it does have impacts of all of our communities because we're seeing some sort of homelessness or as we call it in some of our smaller communities, couch surfing, because we really don't have people on the street, but we have people who don't have shelter directly under their ownership or their rental in that regard. So the Salvation Army might not be something that's impacting Marathon, but it certainly is beneficial to us understanding what their services they provide. So the DSAB affects every one of us. In all of our communities, we pay a fee to DSAB, and they provide services for daycare and Ontario Works and housing. So when you look at that, and I look at my community, for example, with the DSAB having a representation of about 80 units in Marathon and building another 50 as we speak, that's huge impact to our community. But also Ontario Works, they provide a lot of services for those individuals as well as daycare funding. So there's an impact to every one of us through that service. So every bit of the stuff on the agenda, impact. We haven't been assessed since 2016. Impact's going to do a presentation on that. How does that impact all of us? Every one of us have seen increases in our overall housing stock. You know, I'll give you a quick example of Marathon. In 2017-18, our houses were averaging around 110. Today, they're actually 250 on average. That's a huge increase. How is that going to reflect to the individuals? And I'm getting those questions already. How is it going to reflect on my taxes? Well, we're going to have to visit that when the assessments come out and see where the big picture is. So each and every one of the things on the agenda, I believe, in the next day and a half is going to be important to all of the municipalities throughout the region.
Take us through next steps after these 2 days. You said 83 participants here representing a variety of municipalities in the district. How do you take these discussions? Where do they go, and how do we push for change after these 2 days?
So very good point. So what happens out of the league's business, we'll discuss all these things, and if something comes out of this through resolution process, that will go off to NOMA. NOMA's board will then take that in consideration, and then they'll present that to the ministers at a minister forum in AMO in August. So we meet with ministries twice a year, once at AMO, once at Roma, and we talk about the various issues that the leagues bring forward. Like I said earlier, the Thunder Bay, the Kenora, and the Rainy River leagues. The associations bring the information through, so we encourage all of our municipalities. So out of the dialogue that we're going to see over the next day and a half, those will create resolutions and concerns about certain impacts in each one of our municipalities, or not. There could be people who are very happy with things are going. But I think we heard from the mayor. We're all going to see some real struggles over the next couple of years, but we're also going to see some huge benefits in the mining sector growth, the economic growth, the opportunities. So there's opportunities, there's going to be some struggles, and by coming together with this type of event, we can all work together and see what those important issues are to bring to the Government of Ontario for resolution.
Okay, my first question off the bat, the lengthy presentation, a lot of good info in there, kind of especially speaking about the issues over the last 3 years, how things have escalated. Kind of speak to the main points to come out of that for the group, you think?
Yeah, so I really wanted to share district level data related to the opioid use, morbidity, mortality, and to preface that, certainly we've seen an increase during the pandemic or post-pandemic, but that there are some cautions, we were seeing increases prior to the pandemic, so we don't know how much of that really is related to pandemic changes or just because there was actually an increase over time across our area.
And you spoke to quite a few, I guess maybe initiatives is the word that is going on within the district to kind of address this issue. Can you speak to one or two of those and the success that we've been finding with them? Off the top of your head, there were quite a few, but whichever ones jump out first.
Yeah, certainly. I wanted to share, how lengthy of a process it was for our community to undertake feasibility study, consultation, and implementation of supervised consumption services, or the consumption and treatment service that's now at Norwest Community Health Centers, Path 525, and to also share about Lifeguard Connect, the fact that that's available in the district as a resource and a tool. Certainly we have other services and supports like rapid access to addiction medicine clinics that have more recently been launched in district communities as well as in Thunder Bay and Fort William First Nation. I think those are all really critical components. I also wanted to highlight the fact that we can collaborate, given that, this is a district-wide issue and individuals here are representing district communities. That maybe there's more opportunity for us to collaborate and to leverage the work of one another.
Yeah, that was my question too, was how important is it to give this kind of presentation outside of the city like this with all these different reads? So is there a lot of collaboration happening now? Do you feel like there's a gap there?
I wouldn't say there's a gap, but I think we maybe haven't necessarily gotten that far to make those connections. I know that there was a question about how can people participate, and certainly we have had councillors from other outlying communities reach out and be interested in participating, and so it's certainly an open opportunity if anybody here was interested in getting connected with the drug strategy.
Oh, I got a couple more if you're done, Chris. Sorry. It's kind of building off that. During your presentation, I saw a lot of people nodding when you were making specific points, not happy nods, just recognizing that's something they're dealing with in their municipality. So it seems like it's district-wide at this point. How crucial is it to have these gatherings where the information can be shared and they can take it and bring it to higher levels of government and actually seek some, whatever it may be, in terms of supports?
I think it's super important, and I think the whole agenda over the next day and a half, there's a lot of issues that are certainly impacting our local community in the city of Thunder Bay, as well as the outlying areas and the district. We're seeing it across Ontario and across Canada. So the more that we have individuals that are aware and able to maybe advance some of these at other areas, that's a benefit to the province.
Okay, and maybe just to start off presentation there, you talked about a lot of the issues the region are having, increasing calls. Can you maybe briefly go over why that is occurring, some of the reasons behind it, and the issues and the pressures it puts on EMS?
Yeah, so we have a lot of issues going on right now with Superior North EMS and the Paramedic Services and healthcare in general. I mean, what a lot of it is the trickle-down effect. We're having a lot of shortages with healthcare resources and staff throughout the system, and all these pressures are building up into emergencies, and emergencies come back down onto paramedics and how they're going to respond in the communities, and of course bringing those patients into the emergency department, and that's where we're finding bottlenecks. So we need to just improve the general health care in order to actually bring down our emergency volumes.
Speaking to amalgamating stations in the region here, there were some concerns in the question period at the end there. Can you address that? What are some of the benefits that you see coming from amalgamating some of these stations?
So first of all, the stations they're working out of right now are not adequate for a modern paramedic service. We need to increase their shoot times by providing them with modern facilities, areas where the actual ambulance is located in the same building as where they're being housed and working, so they can have a rapid response to that ambulance. We're going to have quick acting garage doors to go up and down, get those paramedics onto the road, into those emergency situations as fast as possible. We're going to need that because the call volumes are increasing, and we're noticing that in the district. So we want to provide those assets, those facilities, those resources, give those tools to the paramedics so they can do their jobs effectively. And that's very important going forward. What we would like to see eventually with our models is also leaving a leave behind resource. For any community that may be underserviced because of these moves or amalgamations, we want to have a leave behind asset and a proactive care model where we have community paramedics in the community actually reducing chronic diseases and helping manage those conditions, medication compliances, taking care of health problems before they become emergencies, because that's going to be the answer to some of our questions.
How much are those challenges, especially in the region, compounded by the staffing shortages and the difficulty hiring that you're experiencing?
Oh, they're hugely compounded. Right now there's epidemics of downstaffing because we can't fill bases, because there isn't enough paramedics on the road. We've seen a lot of attrition through COVID-19. We've lost some paramedics. There's been some mental health injuries. There's been some physical injuries. So we are all constantly losing personnel, but we haven't been able to hire because there's been no graduates out of the colleges. And it's because of the COVID-19 pandemic, really. There just hasn't been a lot of education. Those people haven't been able to graduate, so we haven't been able to hire. So this is the first year. We're actually really excited. We've interviewed 55 paramedics, and we're going to send out job offers if they're not already out, and we're really expecting a great recruitment year.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, obviously today gave you a chance to speak to some of the municipal leaders in the region. I guess, what does the going forward process look like with them as you continue to move forward with that strategic plan?
So we want to have a lot of collaboration. We want to hear their input. We want to hear what's going to serve the needs of their community the most, and we want to provide that need. So we want to work together closely with them, get everybody's input in the whole region, and make sure that we're collaborating, we're coming up with a good plan, and we want to provide those resources that they need.
You had mentioned some changes are coming to the dispatch system and the priority call system. Just kind of, can you go into that a little bit and just explain how that will lessen the burden on the system, I guess would be the better term.
It is an absolutely revolutionary change to how we're doing 911 response. Right now we're working under an archaic system that's called DPCI-2. And what that really has is 2 priority calls for emergency responses. So you're either going out code 3 or code 4. Right now we're seeing a vast majority of our calls being dispatched as code 4, so that is the highest priority. And what we're really returning with is like a 4% volume of true emergency calls. So we have some major disparities on how call taking is happening, how we're being dispatched out, and what we're actually returning with. So we need more accurate call taking, we need better descriptions of calls and events, and we need to be able to alternate our resources to actually provide for those top tier emergency responses and be able to delay for those lower tiered.
Okay, my first question, obviously Superior North EMS, Chief Wayne Gase providing a presentation today. A lot of talk about amalgamation in the region over the past few months in terms of these stations. What's your reaction to the presentation itself and the information it provided?
Yeah, Shane did a good presentation. I think we understand where he's coming from, but that still doesn't, I guess, solve the problem of Scriber and Terrace Bay being amalgamated down to one base. And I know last fall, Mr. Gates said response times wouldn't change. We don't understand how response times wouldn't change if an ambulance is 10 minutes away. So we don't get that part. So we have a meeting with Superior North EMS on April 4th, Scriber and Terrace Bay. We're meeting with him in Terrace Bay, and we'll be asking him some of those questions.
And during the presentation, it seems like this is district, region, province-wide, where we're seeing an increase in calls. Can you kind of talk about, I guess, the state of paramedic services in your municipality specifically to start, how difficult that has been, and how you think amalgamation would alter that for the better or worse? And the impression I'm getting is you think it'd make it the worse, so.
Well, like I say, if you go down to one base from 2, I think it won't get any better. in my opinion, and I think that's the opinion of both councils too. So like I say, on April 4th, we'll talk with Superior North EMS and see what he has to say about how the service is going to get better going down to one station, but we don't see that. I know before they said we'll do in-home stuff and stuff like that, and that's what he's talking about now, but as far as I know, we haven't seen any of that either in Scribe or Terrace Bay.
Mattawa community members who are entitled to compensation as part of the $8 billion federal drinking water settlement are getting some help with their applications. The local Mattawa office on South Court Street is holding walk-in clinics. To be eligible for compensation, First Nation members must have lived for at least a year between 1995 and 2021 in a First Nation under a drinking water advisory. That includes most of the 9 Mattawa communities.
So we are doing the drinking water settlement. It's a walk-in clinic for First Nations people to come in and have their applications filled out. It's just making it more easily. It's making it easier for our members.
You can ignore the camera.
Okay.
As if we're having a conversation. So what? How complicated is the process?
It's actually not that complicated. All people do is they come in, it's just the basic information, which First Nation they were on and when, the dates, and then it's just we need your government ID, your direct deposit, and then we send it off.
And is there a lot of people coming out, or a lot of people who haven't applied yet for, or haven't, what's the word, apply, sign up?
Apply.
Haven't applied yet to get their share of that settlement?
Today is kind of quiet, but the thing about why I think it might be quiet is because the extension, the deadline for the claim has now been extended till March of next year.
Okay, so you're not too concerned at this point about being able to actually get everybody registered. Do you want to go over who's eligible for this settlement and who you're kind of trying to reach out to right now?
So this is where it kind of gets tricky. It is for people who have resided on or lived on the impacted First Nations. So it's kind of, for instance, there are 2 nations that do not apply for or are not eligible for this claim. I believe that's Ganugaming and Long Lake 58. So there are dates that they have to fall within in order to qualify. And it is for everybody, like it's for children, anybody who has ever lived there, even in the past, even if they're living in the city now.
What happens if someone, maybe a kid, doesn't apply between now and the March deadline?
Doesn't apply? They just would not get they would just not get the money.
Okay. Is there any what systems are there in place for making sure that some people who, elders who might not speak English, or kids who might not really have the wherewithal to do the applications themselves, what kind of work are you guys doing to make sure that all of those people still get their applications in for the settlement?
We're actually very lucky today because we have Noel, who actually can translate. So he was actually just helping somebody that required that assistance. So normally in most First Nations, there is always translators. So if somebody does need to fill this out and they do not speak English or read English, there's always somebody available to do the translating.
Perfect. And what about kids? How do they, if I'm 12 or something and this has impacted me, how do I apply anyway?
So there is a form for claim for individuals, and then there's representative claim forms. So that would be for a parent, somebody who would fill it for somebody with disability, or for somebody that has passed away with or without a state. So there is a different form that you would fill out if you were claiming for a dependent or somebody with disability, or again somebody that has since been deceased.
All right, and for anyone who missed today's event and they would still like some help with their application, what can you guys do for them? What should they be doing going forward?
They can reach out to Mattawa. As long as they fall within our 9 First Nations that we help, we could assist them with the claims, whether it was the representative or for the individual for themselves. So it would just be a matter of getting in touch with us.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Word for Word. We'll be back next week with more interviews from across the Northwest.